launched in June 2018 to empower leaders from various sectors, healthcare, education, the private sector, you name it, to more effectively engage underserved communities to drive and sustain change among Black and Brown people. The three partners of Goodstock, myself included, Kimberly Butler-Willis, say hey, Kim, and Dr. Ebony Hilton, live and direct from the hospital, are the partners of Goodstock. And we have been so blessed to have Jocelyn Rogers on our team as communications coordinator and supporting our efforts for quite some time now. Breaking bread is a concept that we developed with Jocelyn earlier this year that we planned to bring people together to have conversations over dinner about race, about diversity, about equity and inclusion. The key part here is dinner, hence breaking bread, to engage in all of those conversations about how they're happening in the United States today. And Lord knows that things have taken on all kinds of new directions.
Yeah, so COVID kind of squashed our dinner plans, right? But nonetheless, we're still coming full force right at you. And I just want to take a minute to spotlight our girl, Joss, before she steps out to lead this conversation. Yeah, I met Jocelyn about a couple years ago now through a past mutual colleague. And this really speaks to my favorite adage: your name is all you have, and you better stay ready. Y'all, Jocelyn told our mutual colleague and our friend that she was moving back to Charleston. And so our friend insisted that we connect. Well, Jocelyn was so persistent. Like, she made sure that we connected. And not only that, but she came to the meeting with notes. And
she came prepared.
Prepared and with an ask, okay? She was very clear about what she wanted, and she essentially sat to the table in Starbucks and said, I want to work for Goodstock, and I want to work for Goodstock so bad that I might even do it for free.
Yes. Like, we didn't have no money.
We didn't have no money, so I was like, look at Jesus. Look at the gift.
Prayers answered.
And she's been a gift. Like, she was just so poised and so polished, and from day one, she's really been everything that we've needed to grow and enhance this business. So though you may not see her all of the time with us or even in pictures, or just know that her time and effort has contributed to some, if not all, of what you guys see.
Absolutely.
She is our rock. We're so excited to see her lead her first Breaking Bread discussion.
Go, Joss.
Listen, and I am so excited because Jocelyn has come together with these amazing group of young adults. And if they're anything like Jocelyn, then I know we're going to be into a very engaging and stimulating conversation, because like I like to say, it's Kim and Kelly. They're old now. Okay.
Whatever.
And I can't ask them about young people things. You know what I mean? And you know how I like to be. No.
I accept it. I take it, girl. Speak the truth.
I'm learning to lean into it.
I'm not only leaned into it. Y'all see what I look like, a hot mess. So, but Jocelyn has pulled together this amazing panel of young people to explore the senseless and far too frequent incidents of what we've seen here lately of what it means to be Black in America, marginalized in America, LGBT in America, you know, Muslim, you name it. What does it feel like to be a part of the other and not the majority in that sense?
Yeah.
And how has that kind of led to this civic unrest that we have in our nation? They'll discuss how systemic racism in the United States has contributed to the pain, the anger, and frustration and hopelessness that's being experienced by Black, Indigenous people, and colored people of America. And here's the thing, you know, grown folks out there, we need to have these types of conversations with these young voices, because they are literally our future. They are present, right? They're the ones that are going to be taking care of us when we get actually old. So without further ado, we're going to hand these things over to Jocelyn, and we know this is going to be in great hands.
In great hands.
It's very informative. It's going to be a powerful discussion. And then we'll join at the end of the discussion with our own questions for about 30, 45 minutes that we'll kind of participate. So, yeah.
Patients try to stay alive so Eb can join us back too.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And to Ebony's point, grown folks, y'all listen to this conversation. We got to do more listening. So let us hop off and listen. Take it away, Joss.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, y'all. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for being here. So we're just gonna hop right in. That was quite an introduction. So like no pressure or anything, but let's do this. So we're just going to start with some really brief introductions. So if you guys just want to go and say we talked about earlier. So your name, what you do, where you are geographically, and your zodiac sign and the characteristics. So if anybody wants to start, and then I'll just kind of pick after that.
I'll go ahead and go first. Hey, my name is Natalie Ocean. I am currently based in Memphis, Tennessee, originally from New Jersey, did some time in Charleston. I currently work for a healthcare tech startup called MedHall here in the Memphis area. And my zodiac sign, I figured I'd go ahead and get over with first, is because I'm a Gemini, and everybody seems to have negative things to say about Geminis. But some of the good things about us that you all love and admire are that we're very adjustable and we are very quick-witted. So the jokes are coming at you.
Come on with it.
True.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go ahead and go next. I'm Cordell Austin. I work in the field of ABA. I work with kids with autism, and I also work in counseling at the Savannah State University. I'm a Virgo, and things that people like about us, we're patient and we're understanding.
Love it. Lundy, you want to go next?
No problem. So yeah, I'm Lundy. I'm based out of Oxford, Mississippi, from Batesville, Mississippi, which is not too far apart. I currently work for a multimedia company called Sip Talk. I'm a community manager / social media manager. And my zodiac sign, like the lady that went first, is a Gemini. People do have a lot of things to say bad about us. I'm not sure why. But one of the most common traits and ones that I love, and it speaks to my personality, is some people call it two-faced. I say versatile. So we're able to like really switch up. And I think that speaks to who I am as a person really, really well.
Thank you, Lundy. Josh, you want to go next?
Yes, like she said, I'm Josh. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina, but I'm currently based in Columbia, South Carolina. I go to the University of South Carolina, and I'm a senior studying mass communications. I'm the president of Brothers of Nubian Descent. I'm a Scorpio, which we also have bad things said about us. I don't know what the beef is, but it is what it is. The trait I feel I connect well with is ambitious, because I go after what I want, and everything I say I'm going to do. So,
go Gamecocks. Elisha, you want to go next?
What's up? My name is Elijah. I go by Eli. I host a Facebook Live show called Talks with E. I have an upcoming podcast called Hot Boy Radio. I am also a Scorpio. And one thing people don't like about us that we're very intimidating. I'm myself, very intimidating in my workspace. People be like, oh my God, like he's so scary, but I'm really not. I just good at what I do. That's all.
Thank you. Tanya.
Hey, I'm Tanya. I currently am in Charleston, South Carolina, originally from Florida by way of New York City. And I'm a postdoctoral fellow at MUSC, where I study trauma and addiction. I just finished my PhD, so that's nice and weird. I'm a Cancer, and so we're kind of like old people, because we just are maternal and really like to care for people. So it's probably the good quality I have from that.
Thank you. And again, thanks everybody for being here. And just really quickly, Jocelyn Rogers, born and raised in Charleston, currently reside. I work in clinical research at the Medical University of South Carolina, and I am a Sagittarius, and I'm very proud of that. I think that the characteristic that relates to me most is I'm just very straightforward, and I'm like a straight shooter, and I think that's a common characteristic for most of us, and I embrace it very well. So that's it. So y'all ready?
Yep.
All right, let's get started. So the first question is, what is it like to be the only minority on your team? And what do you have to sacrifice to be the only one in the room? So you can answer both questions, one of them, but just kind of speak to being the only person in the room on a team of other counterparts.
Well, I would say for me personally, working shoe business at Journeys, when I first started out, I was like maybe 1 out of 3 minorities who used to work there, Black and brown. So when working with other people, It wasn't awkward, but it was like something I have to get adjusted to. Something I had to sacrifice is, of course, my slang, you know, the way that I act, and the way that I talk, something like code switching. So it's like the not usual me and the usual me are like kind of battling to figure out, like, you know, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? Like, can I say that? Am I allowed to say that? And it's a lot.
That's a
Yeah,
very
and I'll jump in and say, this is my favorite question to answer, so it's probably going to be the longest y'all going to hear me talk. So thankfully, this scenario doesn't apply to me in my current role, but I've definitely had situations recently and in the past where I've been the only Black woman or just Black person in general, either in the office or in the department that I'm working in. And one of the things that always runs through my mind, especially as I'm like getting acclimated with the role, is, am I being asked to do certain things because I'm being tokenized for my skills or for my input? And so that's always something that I always have in the back of my head, because a lot of the times when I'm in meetings, especially, I'm a big note taker, and that's just the way I process information. So I need to write down, document notes, hear what's going on before I contribute. I can't just react or speak off the cuff as some people can do to contribute to a conversation. And so a lot of the times when people see that I'm taking a bunch of notes, they're like, oh, are you going to send out the minutes afterwards? And I'm like, well, this is my meeting that I facilitated, so no. But if you would like someone to do that, I can find someone for you. And again, not to diminish those roles or those jobs, because I've definitely been in those shoes where I've been either a secretary or a minute taker or an admin assistant in some aspect. And there's definitely a level of respect to be had for those individuals in those roles. But it's very disheartening to see that because you're the only Black person in the room, because you're the youngest person in the room, there's an assumption to what you're there to contribute to the meeting or to the discussion. Another part of that conversation, as far as what do I sacrifice to be in that, I don't sacrifice anything. So code switching, the most that I'd go for code switching is probably the slang or the profanity that I sometimes use in my casual day conversations. But as far as my appearance, I have my hair out in a fro. That's the way it grows, unless I decide to slick it back when I don't feel like washing it. I usually have my nails long and colorful because that makes me happy and feel comfortable. But I keep my attire is professional, of course, because, you know, that's the nature of the business. But there's something to be said about being or presenting yourself in a way that you feel comfortable and confident in your skin, and you're not sacrificing those aspects to be able to assimilate or conform to just a corporate environment. Because there's no reason, if my nails are not bothering or disrupting the work that I'm doing, my hair isn't getting in the way of us making a decision. So all of those things I just brush to the side.
a lot of good points, and I'm gonna ask a follow-up question after this one. You kind of deterred me a little bit, but thank you for that. Next.
For me, I know I've been, like she said, like not in my current role, but in a lot of other in previous positions, I've been in both of those positions. Now that I'm thinking about it, I've been the only Black male there. One of those positions, I was in a managerial role. So to speak to like some of the things that you sacrificed or some of the things that you had to experience, I know for me, one of the things that I ended up sacrificing was this sense of, well, not sense of, but I guess the ability, I guess, to like fail, you know? So I think that they had such expectations of me, which was later revealed by me being, you know what I'm saying, like a male, and then being Black, and then being educated. It was like you had such high expectations of me that was over even the job that you hired me for. Like you was expecting me to do more than what my job description was. And I think that ends up happening a lot when you're looked at as quote unquote valuable or different or something like that. The expectations that they have of you ends up being so much higher. And it's like you begin to deal with like, am I adequate enough? Like, is it realistic? Like, is it something that I'm doing? And so it's like that was one of the things that I ended up experiencing, was just having high expectations set for you for being Black and a male, like just that simple. So yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I'll go next. Not in my current role that I've dealt with, being on the minority. We have minorities where I work at, but I have been a manager in a previous job to where I think the biggest thing for me to take advantage of, I'm gonna say advantage. Taking advantage of being a Black male and being a leader and being overworked and underpaid, which is, you get a lot of that in the African-American community, whether you're female or male. Also, one thing that I think I had to sacrifice the most was probably my culture as far as being an African-American male. Maybe like wearing my beard. Okay, so that's symbolism to me, as I guess cultural for me from my religious standpoint. Beard symbolized to me is like strength and power, you know. But I had to cut my beard. I couldn't wear it. You know what I'm saying? It's something that you think like, okay, well, it's not affecting anyone. I'm working in the manager role in hospitality. I keep myself well groomed. Also, I think too, as far as I guess you could say, I think what Elijah was trying to say is earlier today, talking like slang. It's not really slang, but it's just us. As far as our culture, it's not really slang. It's just more to me. It's like a natural way of speaking. No one has to adjust more than an African American man when it comes to a professional career.
I agree with that statement, the last statement.
For me, last year, I was on a planning committee and I was the only Black male or Black person on the planning committee. And so for me, it was scary, but it was also empowering because it's like, ooh, I'm the entire voice for the Black community, but it's also like I'm the voice for the entire Black community. So I have something that needs to be done. And I feel like I sacrificed my voice at times because I was like, I don't want to make everything about things being diverse and inclusive, but like, at the same time, if we're planning something on a large scale, that's supposed to be for everybody. We need to make it for everybody. So towards the end or after everything started getting in motion and things like that, the sacrifices had to stop because it's like, if we're saying we're doing this and we really are trying to do this, then we have to do it for everyone. And that's just the way it has to be. I mean, it's crazy being in those situations, but like they never mistreated me or anything, but it's just like, if you're really trying to do things for this university or for this big group of people, 35,000 students, and you're trying to accommodate everyone, you really need to do that. So.
Thank you.
I'll go. I agree with what everyone says, especially what Joshua said about sacrificing your voice. I think for me, I sacrificed like comfort and shared language. And at least when I was younger, I used to just erase it and try to be white. And I think that when you have different holidays and when you have different traditions, trying to explain that and ask for time off, then explain what it is and explain who you are feels exhausting. And so sometimes I would just bypass it and I for a long time just whitewashed myself. And then only through really maturity, growing up and seeing more people like me, I think I realized that I don't have to change for other people, that I can like take up space. And that I feel like now I can't go back. Like I refuse. And so that's been empowering to like not let people's assumptions drive the way I act.
Thank you. So based on what all you guys said, I'm gonna throw a curveball in here and you guys can answer it if you so choose, and if not, then we can just go on to the next question. But what do you guys think is about the representation of like leadership in these organizations or just in the country in general, with like sports teams, managers and owners, presidents of these large corporations and institutions, and them not really being representative of the general population? Does anybody have any thoughts or ideas about that perspective?
Off the top, me. For me, being an athlete, I played basketball for a long time. I've also been a recreational basketball coach. When you don't have that support from the higher ups, it makes you feel like, well, is my voice being heard? Typically now that you have, I don't want to name drop people in the professional industry, but you have some owners in the NFL to feel like, it feels more so like, do what I say. And your actions speak louder than words. But you don't speak up for the people that are actually in your organization that are actually getting you paid. It's just like, okay, I pay you to do one thing. I didn't ask you to do this. And it's kind of like putting you to the side. Like, okay, are you supporting me or is this more political? And I think that gets in the way of a lot of things when it comes to sports. And I do want to commend those sports owners and leaders that are taking those steps to say, you know what, it's been long overdue. These people need people stepping up for them, because in the past, it's been that if we see with Colin Kaepernick, your job's going to be in jeopardy. So you, Lundy.
Yeah, for me, I think it speaks to a lot of different things. If we're talking about the leadership in regards to COVID, or we're talking about the leadership in regards or response to racism in the Black Lives Matter movement, I believe it begins to open up the conversation for me in regards to the disregard, right, for not only people of poverty or people living in poverty, but also working class people, even middle class people. The leadership of the country, the leadership of these, multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar corporations are all ran by the same percentage or type of people. People who are wealthy, people who come from wealth, people who only can view life through the lenses of wealth. And so I think that it just speaks to how often and how much this country disregards people in the poor, poverty, middle, working class, socioeconomic status. I think that you just begin to see how they really, really, really don't care enough for those disenfranchised communities and those disenfranchised people.
Yeah, and I'd add to both of those points. I think it's specifically in response to Lundy's point about COVID. Some of the things that I always cringe whenever I see: breaking news, racial disparities found in healthcare sets, breaking news. I saw something on Twitter earlier this week or last week, and it was like breaking news or shocking news, and it was some kind of headline around Black women's hair being not seen or not deemed as professional in spaces, and I'm like, hello, what's breaking about that? And it's like, if there were people in positions of leadership that had or that were representative of the communities, none of these things would be coming out as breaking or as shocking, right, as if it's the first time anybody's discovered or come up with it. These are things we've been living with for decades and centuries and years beyond that. And it's just interesting to see people that are in positions of power that are not representative of the communities and see how they make decisions that impact those people. And it's like there's no regard or there's no consideration of how that's going to affect them for their specific needs, because there tends to be like a blanket response or a blanket decision that's made that's supposed to cover everybody. Yeah, it may work for this population, but how is it going to impact all these other disenfranchised or underserved communities or low-income communities? I'm always grateful to be in a position, going back to our earlier conversation, of being the only Black person in the room or the only minority in a room, because I'm like, okay, not necessarily that I want to put myself or give myself the responsibility to speak for everyone, but I can at least insert my voice to share that perspective of who's missing from this conversation, who's being left out of these decisions. So there's definitely much to be said about misrepresentation in leadership for people that they're representing or that they're making decisions on behalf of.
Yeah, I saw that news article too. It's like new research shows. I'm like, that's not new research. But if you lived it, experienced it, felt it, you would know that. But it's not my business. Anybody else wanna join in on that question before we go to the next one?
I just wanted to say, I totally agree with what everyone said, but it feels like capitalism. Like capitalism works in a way where it focuses on the buying and selling of people. And I just feel like it's so, I don't know, the blood of this country in a way, that it's irritating that you see it happen all the time from these leaders. And the image I had was of Nancy Pelosi in kente cloth. And I remember seeing that and being what is happening here?
My God. The disrespect.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, but for you to say that, I think that goes to even speak about when you don't have the representation in the room, right? When you don't have these people put in place and really listen to what they have to say, because it's you would have known not to do this. This isn't the response that the people are wanting to see. This isn't what they expect from you. They expect for you to get into, the rooms where y'all making laws, y'all creating these policies. That's where we need this type of concern shown, is in the policies, is in procedures and all of these things. I'm glad you brought up that kente cloth situation, because I kind of forgot about that. But yeah, it's stuff like that shows you it's really a lot of misrepresentation going on. Good point.
Josh or Eli? Or y'all good? Pass. Okay. So Lundy, that's a nice segue. So since the protest, we have seen everybody, Nike, Nickelodeon, everybody making all these statements. The Confederate and racist monuments are being removed in certain cities. They got the streets painted. Police departments have allegedly been defunded. The public statements from these major companies and institutions. So since we've seen all of this attention, what else do we want as a community, as people of color, from these corporations and institutions in the country, the policymakers, everybody?
Well, from my point of view, when the Black Lives Matter movement started, and you know, these companies and stuff wanted to start these hashtags and segments and show that they care, I feel as though, with me personally, this should have not been something y'all put as a flag. You know what I'm saying? Black Lives Matter movement is not a trend. And you know, when ever since June until now, you've seen Instagram, Facebook, you know, Nickelodeon, like she said, Disney, all of a sudden come up with these Black Lives Matter categories, these, you know, the flags and everything. And I'm just saying, like, this should have been something that long time ago. This shouldn't have been something new to y'all. Like, hey, let's jump on this trend of hashtag BLM, or we're all in this together, or blue lives, white lives matter, or whatnot. And I feel as though, like, this should have been something that should have been started way long ago, not just now, because something big happened with the George Floyd murder and the Breonna Taylor and, you know, the Charleston 9, or, you know, this shouldn't have been, murder should have not made this a trend. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
You made an interesting point. Let me segue off of Darius making a point of where this country stands when it comes to a movement of Black Lives Matters. You know, that's been a discussion for years, since Trayvon Martin. Okay, the action should have been put in place. I'm not going to undermine what they're doing, like taking down racist monuments or painting Black Lives Matters on the streets. But what do we want and what do we need? I want to be in those rooms, like Darius said. I mean, we need to be in there when you're making policies, reforms, inclusion in this country, to make sure that we are being not the topic of conversation, but we are a part of the conversation to making a difference for people that are living in poverty. That's more important to me than you going out here making a t-shirt for me or a commercial. That's just you just saying that, hey, we support your movement. And you keep going back to this, reverting to this, like, okay, well, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? It's like being on replay. We need action. We need people saying, okay, all right, this is what you want. Let's go in the room. Let's talk about it. Let's make a discussion about it. Let's write something up. Hey, we're going to propose this in this state, in this county, and let's get the ball rolling. We need that kind of stuff happening. When we talk about the Holocaust, they pay reparation to these people that went through the Holocaust. Millions and billions of dollars. Okay,
That's it.
So you can go into a room and come up with a system that actually supports us, the people that built this country, and other immigrants, in some form of way, not just financially, but also to build a heritage. You know, we need that. You just can't have, like, okay, just pay them a stimulus check, $1,200, or something like that. But yeah,
I want to say something before anybody says something. I'm sorry to interrupt. But when he said about the whole t-shirt thing, I feel as though a lot of companies like American Eagle, Nike, and a lot of non-minority companies, when they make these shirts, that's basically, to me, a symbol of, we take this and shut up. No, that's not what we need. That's not what we want. What we want is to be seen as equal. We don't just want a movement on a t-shirt and just call it a day. That's basically saying to me, that's basically saying, here's a t-shirt, or here's a sticker, put on your car, and you can shut up, and then that's all we're gonna give you. That's not all we need. We need more.
So yeah, I am personally a reparations by any means type of person, right? And so that's what I believe the most that we need, money, right? In various forms. So that's in forms of specifically paying people of African descent monetary installments, whether it be that, whether it's providing jobs. Speaking from a creative standpoint, when you're talking about brands like Nike and Disney and all of these other things, even, you know, CNN and all these other places, is like now you should begin to get Black people, employ more Black people, right? Employ more people of color, people who can then really begin to diversify, not just one department, right? Not just one, not the urban department, what they love to use, not that, but literally diversifying the entire brand, the entire message. I know one brand that has done really, really well for me in regards to doing this has been Ben and Jerry's, right?
What?
Even their language, even the things that they call out, you know, like specifically speaking to and saying the words police brutality, racism, white supremacy, that's what we need. I don't want people hiding behind, you know, we're just going to make a commercial with a lot of Black people and say, you matter. You know what I'm saying? Like those type of things. We're saying those are all pacifiers. Those are all things that's saying, okay, woo, look at us. Like we're trying, you know, we're doing something. And it's like you said, all of these things have just been well overdue. Like these are things that it's like we shouldn't even be, and coming from Mississippi, right, we're dealing with just now redesigning a flag that has been racist from conception. And we're just now introducing a redesign and seeing how important it is. In other places, you just now have, you know, these monuments being removed, you know, reflecting back on their part of the question. And so it's like a lot of these things are pacifiers, well overdue. And it's like snaps and claps for that. But at the end of the day, for me, I need money, I need jobs, I need opportunities. Again, just reparations by any means for me.
And I'll say, kind of going off of all the points that were made, which were really great, by the way. One thing, a lot of these responses are very performative, right? So there's a lot of opportunity to be in the spotlight, to capitalize on this moment, like we talked about earlier. And I can see that, like, oh, a lot of people are talking about this. I should probably say something too, because sometimes there those kind of actions or those behaviors may be well ingrained into a company, but because nobody's heard about it, it's not a well-known or a not largely known minority-owned company, people may just assume like, oh yeah, they don't care about Black lives. So maybe that's an opportunity for them to share what they're doing within their companies and to broadcast that in that way. But there are definitely more so than not those companies or those brands that are taking advantage of this opportunity and putting up a Black square on their Twitter feed and then deleting it a couple months later because it, you know, messes up the aesthetic of their feed or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely that aspect of it that I really hate to see, but I know is always going to happen. It's always going to come up. One thing I want to talk about in addition is in response to Cordell's point about action planning, right? So there should always be something behind the message. So the painting on the streets is awesome. The flags and the banners are awesome. The messages on the social media, on the website are awesome for visibility. But what's really happening after that visibility dies off, right? Once you continue to add more things to your website or add more things to your feed, it's going to go further and further down where people aren't going to be able to see it as often. So what are you going to do to make sure that it stays at the forefront? What are you doing internally? And again, aligned with action planning is not burdening your Black staff or your Black team members to come up with the action planning for you. So it's always, well, what should we do? So what are we going to do about this? What do you think? And it's like, yeah, I'm going to contribute my ideas because I have that perspective, but the fact that you're coming to me is you telling on yourself that you never cared about this in the first place. So why don't you already have systems in place or processes in place so where you can come out or think about these things on your own and then maybe come to like one of your Black segmented groups in your organization to respond or provide feedback or input, not to create everything for you, because that's just adding on to the whole issue that we have here. Another thing I want to add is from a startup perspective, working in this new industry for me has also been interesting because there's been a lot of, even outside of the startup space, there's been a lot of, oh, you know, we're willing to give these companies this amount of money, or we're willing to mentor these companies, especially in the startup space. There's been a lot of, we're willing to offer Black founders 15 minutes of consultative time. One, what is 15 minutes going to accomplish for me that's going to move my business from where I am to where I should be? And two, again, telling on yourself, willing to give, willing to offer. Why aren't we deserving of those offers in the first place? Why is it now we have a carved out amount of time and a carved out period of time to reach out to you for quote unquote mentorship? So there's a lot of these things that are happening that are great starting points, but if that's all you have to offer, then I'd rather not take it at all.
I'm going to go back to what Lundy and Cordell said. about the reparations, we would love that in more ways than another. Money isn't going to fix everything, but it can fix something. Like if $50,000 might be a lot, but that can pay off somebody's car, half of somebody's house. Like that can help because we don't have the generational wealth that some other people might have. And so another thing that Elijah said about we want to be seen as equal, that is very true. Like having fair trials, like that one lady who put her son in a better district, but it wasn't her address, and she got 5 years. And then Breonna Taylor's killers haven't been arrested. George Zimmerman got off Trayvon Martin. So like, why are these things, why is this even an issue when it comes to that? Like you can put her in jail over school, but not over somebody who killed someone. Like those are things that don't make sense to me. And I believe a lot of that has to do with us not being in certain spaces, which we are trying so hard. Like Trayvon Martin's mom is trying to get into those spaces of where she can speak and change laws and make laws, this, that, and the third, you know, but it's a little harder for us because we might not have the money to broadcast ourselves like how so many people other do. And Maxine Waters is in that space and that's great, but that's only one person and she can only do so much. So having us in those spaces, that would be a bigger step into getting us somewhere better than where we are right now.
Anything you want to add, Tanya, before we go to the next question?
Damn, I was processing.
Okay. Okay.
That was all amazing. I just like want to do snaps. I guess I just feel like companies are being like really opportunistic, and just like focusing on how they're portrayed and their image, not really doing anything. And I think the lack of transparency, like people can tell, like you can tell when someone's being genuine or not, even if it's a company. But I also think it points to the fact that like we don't have good legislation at all. And so what's being filled in are these corporations instead of like actual, I think, local, state, and national leaders saying something in the right way.
So another good segue, I was going to follow up with generational wealth question, but I feel like we touched on that a little bit. So new news, really new news. So what are you guys' thoughts and perceptions about Joe Biden and him selecting Kamala Harris as his VP?
So I'm going to be totally honest. This is my first year voting. And of course, with me being a new voter in the South, there's going to be a lot of older people telling me this and that about a candidate, or you shouldn't vote for them because of that, or you shouldn't vote for them because of that. But I'm pretty sure now with being like maybe 2 years into like, you know, about to start, you know, voting, I'm pretty sure I have a good, you know, idea of who I'm going to vote for. Now with him picking, I don't know her name, Ms. Harris, I don't really know too much about her or seen anything political about her personally, but I do know who I want to vote for, and I do know what I need to do so I can contribute to my first time voting.
I'll say that.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Lundi. No, go ahead. You were going to talk first.
For me, it's really just so I'm also not a big politics person. I don't know if it comes up like I am, but I'm really not a big politics person. And so with like especially like with the presidential election, and so when I'm first hearing of, you know, Joe Biden running and then actually having an opportunity, you know, to be a candidate, and then so he gets that, and then he pairs with VP candidate Harris. For me, my initial thought was, you know, my response was, okay, Black woman, cool, I'm out for that, even though knowing that she had, you know, her, what do people say, like her track record of, and I don't know if you all know this, but just having a track record of being a DA and incarcerating a lot of people of color due to minor charges, right? And so my first thought with that was, of course, the quote comes up, you know, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, you know what I'm saying? Like, would she really be, you know what I'm saying, a great candidate running with someone like Joe Biden, who people already have their own issues with him, just a person? And what I've had to resort to, my coping mechanism was, okay, listen, at this point, they could put a dog and a cat in the positions of president and vice president. We just have to focus on making sure that the current person who holds that seat is no longer there. That is my only energy now. And I think that speaks to this conversation about how Black people or people of color have always had to like choose between the lesser of two evils in regards to politics. Like I don't think we've ever just been like 100% besides Obama, and people still even have their reservations with him. But we've never been 100% for any candidate. And I think that's tough looking at what politics is. We're allowing people to come in and say what they can do, what they're going to strive to do, but we really don't know until they're put in their position. And then you begin to see that there's a lot of factors that go into lawmaking and policy and procedure. Like, it's a lot of things that go into that. So it's like, have your different reservations about her, but then also understand that like she's going to be under attack for a lot of different reasons. One of them mainly being just because she's Black and then being a woman. We know, what I'm saying, like the issues that Michelle Obama had to face just being the first lady. And so I can only imagine what this woman is going to have to endure. So that's what I think about ways to bring up, our reservations about candidates like we always do, but making sure that we're just being respectful too. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Lundy. I wanted to add on to your point about no candidate is perfect, right? So there's always been flaws with any of the candidates in any kind of election that we have. But I think in this circumstance, one of the things that's been a little disappointing to a certain degree has been people, especially on social media, kind of shooting people down as far as their celebration of the representation that they see in Kamala Harris being or being selected as VP. So there's a lot of Black women that are excited, a lot of Black people that are excited, a lot of HBCU grads that are excited, a lot of AKAs that are excited, just because they're able to see a piece of themselves in such a high level of leadership and potentially being part of this new administration. And so there's definitely something to be said about why it's bad or why it's looked down upon for people to celebrate the mere fact that there's some level of representation. But then there's also an opportunity for them to consider the politics behind it. So everyone is always up. She's definitely up for a critique or up for analyzation of her politics. So again, you don't want to just blindly vote for somebody and then step back and hope they do the best they can. Because they're in that position of leadership that's being voted in by the people, they have an obligation to hear the people's concerns and to listen and take into what are the critiques people have on them and their processes or their politics, et cetera. So I don't think she's excluded from that just because she's a Black woman and yeah, we want to see somebody like us in office. It's great that we want to see somebody like her in office, but there's all these things that you just spoke of that she needs to be held accountable for as well. Is this going to continue while she's in office? Has she been taking in the critique about some of the work or some of the areas of her track record that people have been having conversations about? All of these things are going to play into what the full administration is going to look like with her in that position. But again, there's definitely somebody that needs to get out of office right now, but we definitely don't want to take away from people's ability to critique her. Just because we're celebrating her doesn't mean that we're overlooking or we're dismissing any of the work that we may find negative or that we may find problematic from her past. We can have both. We can be excited and be ready to critique. We can have both in this scenario. So.
Yep.
Great point. That was a great point. My initial thought was Kamala Harris. I was like, okay, I'm glad, people are excited about her position. Of course, you said a lot of AKAs, a lot of African-American people of Asian descent too, are excited because like, hey, she's in the second highest office. She could be, possibly be in the White House of color, and we recognize it. I don't want to take anything away from that. Since 2020 has been this kind of way it's been, it's just like, hey, can we just be happy for a moment? But let's get to the bread and butter of it. Like, all right, let's cut the BS. Let's cut the bullshit. Let me go ahead and say that. Let's cut that. Okay, all right. As far as her being a DA and what she's done to people of color, you have to recognize it. You got to be held accountable. We are in a country that's like so unforgiving. We contradict ourselves all the time, every second, every minute of the hour that somebody gets into a position. The first thing we do, hey, well, what is this person like? Let's go find something wrong with that person. Not to take that away from Mrs. Harris. I mean, okay, she's African-American. Like, I'm happy for that. We need something like that in the news relishing. But she's gonna get bombarded. Just now, in the last 24 hours, they're questioning her ethnicity, like who she is, her character, all of that is gonna come out. They're gonna come out left and right. Who is she? Just been circulating memes of her putting Caucasian on her birth certificate. Little stuff like that. Just like really things like that kind of gets to you. Like, hey, well, and then you go back to Joe Biden. He's gonna take an attack. They're talking about he looks like he has dementia. He's 77 years old. All that other stuff coming into factor. Him picking VP Harris as his running mate, more political, and the more votes he can get from our people. But again, when you talk about politics, it's nasty and it's messy. We see that on the simplest forms of in high school when people are running for king and queen of homecoming. We see that, you know what I'm saying? Okay, oh, I didn't know that you did this. Oh, you giving me candy this week. I didn't even know your name 2 days ago, you know what I mean? So this is a bigger margin that we're talking about. Come November 3rd, we see that. We see a shift in how things are playing out day to day now with this pandemic. It gives you time to reel in what's actually going on with your company because you're not so caught up in work. You know what I'm saying? Something that I feel like that's a whole nother topic of making sure people are not paying attention to what's going on in this country. Now you have a time to like segue into like, okay, who's making these decisions? Okay, who's going to be in our leadership? Are they seeing our concern as, okay, hey, I'll get to it later, or is it actually your agenda when you get into this high office?
I kind of feel like I'm back in 2016 again, which was my first time voting. I had Hillary or Trump, and now it's Trump and Biden and Kamala. And at this point, it's just like, whose tweets will we be able to withstand for another 4 years at this point? So it's like when Kamala came out the first time, we had all that stuff come out about her and the DA, she put black people in jail, yada, yada. It's like, okay, we definitely don't want her. Then she dropped. Okay, we don't got to worry about her no more. Then 5,000 other people dropped. And like, now we're here. We've seen Joe and what he's done with Obama. So now it's just like, or what he's done with Obama. And so now it's like, what is she going to do with him? It's like, do we really want that? And yeah, we want this man out of office. So we're honestly probably going to do whatever we need to do. But it's just neither of them are the greatest options. But, we're just going to pray for the best. So.
Kanye's looking good.
Oh, please.
Absolutely.
Listen,
Absolutely not.
Look, there. Ooh, we. And something that Cordell said, which was about people beginning to question Kamala's blackness. I saw a clip of someone basically saying like, we don't have time now to begin to depict or try to depict what blackness looks like, because we all know being black people or people of color, like they look a lot of different ways. And so attacking this woman about what we feel black should look like is just really counterproductive at this point. It's like it's a lot of work that we're doing, and being people who screamed about not wanting to be placed in this black box, not wanting to be looked at as just one type of people, loving and showing the diversity of black people. And it's like, but we begin to say, oh, she did this, she not black enough, or you know what I'm saying? I think it really speaks to like her light-skinnedness as well. I think that's a lot of it that goes into play, because she is really, really, really fair-skinned, right? But you're talking about a woman who, she went to an HBCU, pledged a black organization well before, becoming someone of status, like someone becoming a public figure, a political figure. She did all of these black things, and it's like we still got to question like who she is because of what, like what and I, like I said, we understand the reservations that she had, because again, locking all them black folks up, I ain't with it. You know what I'm saying? Like those are the things that we need to talk about, but I'm not gonna say you not black, like, because you just are.
And one thing I don't want to see happen is, because I feel like Kamala there's a lot of a spotlight on her at the moment as far as the way people are critiquing her. Biden is definitely up for critique as well. So I don't want it to all fall on her because she's a Black woman, part of the party. So Biden should be getting equally as criticized. But again, there's a mission that we're driving through here, right? So let's go ahead and vote the way that we should vote. But again, holding them both up to the critique and the standards that we want for somebody that's held in office, making decisions on our behalf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll jump in and I'll say, like, I don't know, Biden's basic to me. Like, he was the safe pick. Like, he's boring. He's kind of old school. He messes up what he says all the time. He has a whole Tara Reid sexual assault allegation that's been put under the rug because we can't even afford to talk about it, because then we have to worry about Trump staying in office. So it's like, he's boring. Like, none of his policies made sense to me or were exciting or progressive. And so I just don't think the status quo is going to change much under his administration, which I still hope he gets, though, because I don't like Lundy said, a cat and dog would be better.
I think you made a very good point. You made a very good point when you said that. Like, we see the bias there. We have two Caucasian males that we're actually having a conversation about. They have allegation that actually we do have evidence that, hey, they actually did something. And we're thinking about, okay, hey, well, what choice do we have? Where is our voice? You know, again, that's a interesting point there.
And I think with Kamala, Kamala is half Indian. And so I saw the Indian community freak out with excitement, because when you're an immigrant, at least my experience in my family's was like, you just try to assimilate because you don't want to be pushed out. And so you do whatever you can to survive. And so I think what I noticed was how many people jumped on her nomination as a win for them. Like, how much people are dying for representation, that they will just take anything they can get to be seen.
Yep. And that's sad.
It is sad. I think it's really sad, because it just shows that there's so few opportunities for people to be seen by a larger electorate.
Right.
Well, this has been insightful. Thank you all for your feedback, and I'm sure it's going to impact a lot of people and definitely make some people think about some things that we have going on. So I'm going to invite the partners back of Good Stock, and they're going to wrap us up.
Listen, I don't know if I want to.
Baby.
Yeah, ready for
it. Auntie. Y'all, I need to kick this off and say that I love the passion that you guys have about these issues. And the partners and I were texting each other back. Did you hear that?
Yep.
Because it's so raw and authentic, and I sincerely thank you for the time you gave for us today. But I do have one question that's haunting me. What can we provide you? Are we giving you the resources, the time that you need in order to put some legs on this passion? Like, what do you need from us as the generation ahead of you, are the people that may be just one step ahead of you, to prop you up in a way to help you mobilize all of the good stuff that you guys just talked about?
Kim, you just made a very interesting point of saying that. A lot of the times when it comes to a generation before, especially my dad, he's now reeling in okay, hey, I need to listen more and also put my foot down, because now it's almost like our generation is always going to, well, I'm going to just give you my experience. That's all I got to give you, because we had people protest and march during our times, but when you have a generation after you, your kids, trying to be a voice, and you keep getting that kind of pushback from his era, look, okay, we've done this before. Hey, this is a new generation, man. You didn't even have a cell phone around at this time, or a platform, to even have a voice. I'm not worried about my job at this point. It's about me getting out of this survival flight or flight mode to be okay, I can't say something because of my job or my career wise, right? We're way beyond that part of being awkward and unsure about the future of finances. I mean, okay, we've been there. You showed me with your experience that I can keep surviving. So why not speak out on some issues that we're going through?
Yeah, and I feel in that same vein that it would be great to see more support of the new ways that people are protesting or new ways that people are standing up for these issues. So it's a little bit different where, to Cordell's point, where the social media probably isn't there, or these other digital ways of communicating or sharing these messages isn't there. But there are things that, in addition to protesting, or things in addition to these silent marches that can be done, and that should be valued as well, because they are making an impact in one way or another. Everyone isn't the type of person who wants to be in a crowd of large people. Maybe they're the ones on the back end managing the social media, or maybe they're the ones on the back end gathering the material that's needed for these marches and these protests. So I think seeing more support of the new ways or the new tactics that the young generation is using to make their voice heard is really helpful.
Natalie, can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yes.
I'd love to hear from this group. Have you participated in the recent protests? If so, why do you choose that specific form of activism? And then if not, what have you been able to do to make your voice heard, to have an impact on the issues that we've been discussing this evening? I think specific examples are helpful because folks might not always know what to do. And hearing from y'all, and I'm sure the experiences are varied, we're going to position people to get out there and really make an impact. So I'd love to hear from each of y'all, what have you been doing specifically that you're proud of and that you think makes a difference?
Yeah, so I know for me, protesting or marching isn't my avenue. I'm very anxious in crowds of large people. And so just hearing the negative thing that sometimes happens in these situations is a little off-putting for me. So that's not my way of participating. So anytime that I see an opportunity to donate to an organization or a fund that seems legit to me, I go ahead and do that, especially with the bail funds that have been becoming a little bit more necessary, especially as people have been wrongfully incarcerated or locked up for things that don't even make sense. And then also just spreading the word. And I think for me, one of the things that I'm working on just for myself is, because I'm not doing the visual or the active part as far as protesting is concerned, is taking inventory on those ways or on those methods that I can be implementing to be useful, because there are such a variety of things to do. And I really hate to see, like I mentioned earlier, people downplaying or not taking as legitimate the other ways that people choose to contribute. And they may be a silent partner, so to speak, but they're still speaking up in a way that makes them comfortable and is still adding value to the movement.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Lanny.
Oh, I was just gonna say, for me, just to answer the question, like I'm, I guess you could say, a protester. I've protested and have been participating in protests since like 2016. And
that's so shocking, Lundy. So shocking.
No, you've been protesting 4 years straight, huh? You just got there.
I'm on the front lines.
I've been
I was a little disappointed that I couldn't participate in the much more radical protest, because I feel like,
what you
say what you want to say, have an opinion about it, but I do feel that type of behavior is one of the things that's really shifted and made this conversation of Black Lives Matter and all the response to police brutality and any other form of racism really be on the mainstream. I believe these type of violent or radical protests have been the things that have really catapulted us into this next wave of, this can't be ignored any longer. So like I said, coming from a protester, like I have done that, but I also have wanted to do like a dual thing. So I also take my own platform, my own social media, and use that as a way to educate people who don't really, who have a hard time keeping up with all of the headlines, who don't want to read every article, who sometimes, have to deal with not reading every article for the sake of their own mental health. Like, so, I just choose to educate people in a way to where they know what's going on and they know what they can do if you don't protest, just a simple share. Like she said, donating, whether it be to a bond, whether it be to an organization that's specifically targeting some form of police brutality or racism. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing.
That's what you've been doing? Tanya, what about you? I'm curious. How do you protest in a clinical setting?
That's a great question. Advocacy. I think being a clinician is being an advocate and being an activist. For me, I didn't go out into the streets, even though in New York I would have been a heartbeat, but I was new here and I didn't know kind of what Charleston was like. And I also had a new job. So I was a little nervous about that. But for me, it's been like kind of starting small. So it's like my friends and the communities I'm in, the meeting I was in with Jocelyn, speaking up when I see spotlighting happening, speaking up when I see people being questioned or asking them to be educated on something, and advocating for the people I work with, that like I get the pleasure to work with and I have the power because I'm the provider in that situation. And then I think to add to it, for me, it's been like, where do I put my money? Like, I don't buy shit from Amazon because I don't want to give Jeff Bezos money. So for me, it's like, you look for the place on Friday to get food from if you want to get takeout. Like, you figure out what's the Black-owned business that you want to support because money matters. And that's a way of engaging reparations, even if you don't have the power to do like universal one.
Oh, I like
You better preach.
You done blow up my whole spot. You have blown up my entire
You better
spot.
preach. Anybody else?
That's the one.
Anybody else want to share before I kick it over to Ebony to ask her question? Any of y'all want to share your experience with protesting or how you are trying to make an impact through your actions?
Me personally, anybody, well, Jocelyn, she knows, with my podcast and my
What is
Facebook
your
live show,
podcast?
I'm a comic. Oh, my podcast is called Hot Boy Radio.
Hot Boy Radio.
So,
Okay.
yes, ma'am, on Anchor.
Where
So
is,
when I
like, well, hold on a second, don't gloss over that. Where can we find you, Hot Boy Radio?
you can find me on the app Anchor. You can find me on the app Anchor. My first episode was supposed to be this weekend, but it's going to be next Tuesday.
Okay.
And of course, the subject is introduction of me. And then, of course, after that, anybody. But one thing I have changed this year with me being a comic, and Jocelyn knows this, I make a lot of jokes about everything. I joke about everything. And with me coming on my podcast and coming on my Facebook live show, I have, talk about a lot of serious things. People who know me, they're like, oh, he's talking about, politics or movements, or me personally, I didn't protest because I have mild anxiety and I can't do that type of stuff. But so I have contributed my way to my show, my podcast, what I've been posting, and just basically speaking out.
I love it. Eb.
Yeah, I guess, first of all, thank you. Y'all truly are inspirational to me. And one of the things I always wonder is, when I'm talking to my nieces and my nephew, is, am I failing you guys? Because what me, Kim, and Kelly, we didn't grow up in this era of seeing violence against Black people on a day-to-day basis like our parents did, right? They grew up in the civil rights movement, and they saw, the lynchings, and they saw the dogs being released on them by police officers. And we grew up in this, the mountain, and then we were in the valley. And so we came in the 80s where
I came in the 70s, people. I'm gonna claim it.
First of all, I'm a millennial, not a millennial. No, but honestly, we grew up in this wake of relative quietness, because we know racism was definitely still there in full force. But we didn't grow up where we see daily people dying, and y'all grew up with this kind of weird mix of your first president that you probably truly knew was Barack Obama, a Black man, but yet you grew up during the time of Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner and Philando Castile, and this was your teenage formative year. So I guess my question is, for my generation that are where we're going to be now, the new leaders of the world coming up, how are we failing you right now? What do you need from us that we're not giving you? And how can we feed y'all? What more can we do for you emotionally, professionally, and what policies do you want us to try to push for to implement, since we are currently holding those positions in offices?
I would like to say, I don't think that you guys are failing us. I feel like you guys are trying, and we see that. Like, you're getting in those spaces, like, you're a Black doctor. Like, we don't see Black doctors like that. Like, we have, like I said before, Maxine Waters in that space, and Barack Obama was president. So we see that you guys are trying, and you guys are doing things, so you're not failing by any means, at least in my eyes. But just providing us with the knowledge about a lot of things that we may not know per se. Like some people don't know how to vote. Like some people don't know about looking up or going further than Instagram posts to look at politics and things like that, or how to even study for an MCAT or LSAT and things like that. So just providing us the resources to even have that mindset to get into certain spaces that may not have been presented to us or presented to us formally.
Thank you, Joshua.
I say professionally speaking, again, I don't think you all have failed us. I think there's just opportunities to support in different ways. So I say professionally, I've definitely seen a shift, specifically in the area of like mentorship or sponsorship, where there's been a lot of discussion about like which one is more useful as far as getting people into the spaces they need to be versus just being a supportive voice for them. And there's definitely an opportunity or a space for more of that sponsorship piece, right? So it's not just verbally saying, yeah, Natalie's a great candidate or so-and-so was a great candidate, but saying Natalie's a great candidate, here's the work that she's done, she belongs right here, like being very specific and very vocal about where you see her fitting in these specific spaces and not just shooting a name into the dark and seeing what happens. Because sometimes it is helpful to get that those initial mentorship relationships developed, because I think that's what really leads to more meaningful sponsorship opportunities. But it is important for people that have come before me to especially remember that sometimes a cold reference isn't really helpful. There needs to be some more of a warm lead or more of a warm introduction, and literally picking me up and bringing me into those rooms with you.
Right.
Yeah. And then I'd also add that as far as going back to your point, Dr. Hilton, about the imagery, I was around, or I remember vividly when Amadou Diallo got shot in the hallway in New York and outside of his apartment. And that was like it didn't stick with me as a child, but like seeing the things that I'm seeing now that I've seen as I've grown up is like, how was this allowed to happen? And for me, it's definitely been overwhelming, the access that we have or the unsolicited imagery that we're forced to consume. One of the things that I've always tell my parents is I don't want to watch the news. They keep it on day and night, and it's very overwhelming to hear and see the same things being talked about over and over again. Like, we get it, and for them, that's how they receive their information, so they need it to be able to stay abreast of what's happening. But for me, I have my social media. I'm going on my social media for entertainment and also to stay aware of what's happening, and so to hear in the background also when I'm trying to relax at home is to hear the news and all of this continuing to go on. It's very overwhelming and very draining. So I think that's another, and that could be in part a communication issue between the generations perhaps, is vocalizing where you're uncomfortable or where those things are making you feel a certain kind of way. So people have the space and opportunity to make those changes.
Natalie, so when you say that, what I'm hearing is more mentee advocacy. So it's not just about having a mentor, but it's about advocating for that person. And that is going to require such a deep relationship. I think sometimes as leaders, professional leaders, we'll say, we'll be your mentor. And it's kind of a superficial kind of surface relationship. What you're asking for is true partnership. Like, you want to be in relationship with us as a leader. You want to be my work boo, you know?
Right.
Have those experiences with me. And I think that's something that leaders need to hear, because we often get so wrapped up in the task that we're trying to accomplish. So maybe quality over quantity, less mentees, deeper relationships.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a space and a place for mentorship, because, you want to have someone where you can bounce ideas off of or just talk to candidly.
Right.
But I think that sponsorship takes it to another level.
Yeah. You want to say something, Mav?
No, I was going to say, like, for someone to truly see me, like, you can't advocate for me and be a sponsor if you don't know, like, what literally makes me tick. Like, where's my passion?
You don't even know I got a dog.
Right, but honestly, it's like, let me tell you what's my why behind all of this. Why am I passionate about this? And so then you'll know exactly where I fit.
Yeah.
And so, and once you put me in that door, you won't have to keep me there. They're going to want me there. Right. So I completely agree with you.
Can I circle back to something that Cordell said? Oh, excuse me, Cordell.
Go ahead. You want to go? Okay.
You said no one has to adjust more than an African American male.
Okay.
Right.
Don't shift your glasses, Lundy. Shift your glasses.
Adjust.
Because now that we are in this predominantly female space, I kind of wanted the ladies to react to that, because as soon as you said it, I wrote it down. I thought, excuse me, sir. Because I would argue that you have the male privilege that we don't often have. And so, but yeah, I'm a hush, and I'm going to ask for my sisters on the call to kind of give me some feedback from that.
Well, I want to hear Cordell unpack it a little further before I chime in.
That's so kind, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, first of all, I was going to give you guys some praise, Kelly, Kimberly, and Ebony. Also, to being on this platform, to give us a voice. Ebony asked, what can we do as your generation to do better? Are we failing? You guys are not failing us. Just having this conversation and be able to be a voice. Also, too, you three, if it wasn't for you three, we wouldn't have a Jocelyn to give us this opportunity to have this voice. Mm-hmm. And I'm so happy to have her as a future sister-in-law. I mean, and to see her being able to push, you know what I'm saying, and to actually give people voices in areas that maybe you don't have. Like, where do you go to get that? And you guys see what a blessing you are to her to expand on us, you know what I'm saying, in our professions and our views on things, because I can't just call up CNN or MSNBC and be like, hey, I got this, you know, opinion and stuff like that. But yeah,
don't try to butter us up. Don't try to butter us up. I almost felt the tear.
Back to what you said, Kimberly, about me saying that African American men don't have a lot to sacrifice the most, and what I meant from that, you know,
because I meant it.
Yes. to me personally, you know, to me, looking at it over history and my sisters, my mom, I feel like that women of color are like they're disrespected at a higher level, like crazy level, right, across the board. What I meant by as far as sacrifice, when you look at it, to me, as being an African American male, like, look, whatever we say, that's what you're gonna do. We're gonna incarcerate you. It doesn't matter what you do. We can put it on the news. We're gonna kill you. We're gonna show you this imagery. We're gonna put it out there, and we're gonna show you. You know what I'm saying? To me, biggest thing to me is imagery. You know, imagery. What you see. You know what you see. You know what I'm saying? And seeing is believing. To see me out there and we see a George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, get actually executed and murdered, and then, you know, and to have that displayed from Trayvon Martin, even before that, Emmett Till, we can go back as far as that if you want to, the countless others that have lost their lives in this system of oppressors, you know, to see that, like, okay, hey, you know, we're going to sacrifice. It's more to like life, you know what I'm saying? We'll kill you and we'll show you that we kill you, you know what I'm saying? And also too, being on a job, like for me, you know, in past jobs that I've had, you know, hey, I had to do twice as much to show that, hey, if you do something, it can be minor. I can tell you this. I had a job previously, not previously, but I think I was 22, 23. I got wrote up for not filling the cookie jar. I was a night manager, right? We got more things important to be dealing with in the hospital. Yeah, filling the cookie jar. I was in the manager role at a night manager at a hotel setting. And I did all the paperwork. So, we good for the weekend. We're sold out. I got this. I got us 2 or 3 groups booked. I've exceeded more than anybody else here, you know, and a professional. I'm always getting compliments, you know. But I forgot to fill the cookie jar, and the manager at the time, which was a Caucasian woman, she's a Republican. She made it known that she was a Republican in her views. And she wrote me, yeah, you didn't fill the cookie jar, and that's something that we need. I was like, whoa. And she wanted me to sign off on it. I wouldn't sign off on it. I was like, if today's gonna be my last day for cookies, I'm fine. I take that sweetness, you know, but I didn't sign it. You know, we got into a meeting with the owner, and she didn't feel like it was of relevance. You know, she kind of threw it out, and I was like, you know, maybe it's time for me to move on. Just something that's small like that. You know, that was a sacrifice for me, looking at like an African American male, like, wow, what is this? Why are we even having this conversation, you know, about cookies, you know?
Okay, now I'm sorry. Now I feel bad, y'all. I'm sorry, ladies. Don't
you know what? But hands down, I would have said that I feel like black men have to that they are under more pressure than I am as a Black woman. Now, granted, I think Black women are we're not allowed to be show emotions in the full spectrums of emotion, but neither are Black men. And if you do look at the numbers, Black men are more likely to fall victim to being murdered, to being fired, to being, suspended from school. Actually, young girls are getting suspended from school. I think at a higher rate than young Black boys. But we know that for instance, I had one of my colleagues say that he intentionally wears a pink lead apron at work in order to make himself look less threatening to people. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I wish they would be threatened by me. And it's like, no, I can't. It's better for me to avoid the confrontation and prevent it than to be in the middle of it. So,
life preservation. Yeah.
And I was going to say, oh, go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, no, go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, hearing Cordell's response, thank you for that, Cordell, for your digging deeper into that. I see a little bit of like not necessarily a dichotomy, but there's definitely situations where Black men experience things that Black women can't relate to and vice versa. And I think for me, what comes to mind most immediately, especially in regards to imagery, is Black men tend to be used as an example or made an example of, and Black women tend to be silenced. So thinking about the murder that recently happened. So we have George Floyd, we have Breonna Taylor, we have Ahmaud Arbery. George Floyd, not saying that one is more important than the other, but George Floyd definitely was the kind of the camel that broke, or the straw that broke the camel's back, as far as inciting a lot of these reactions as far as protests, etc. And Breonna Taylor's name has kind of fallen to the wayside, where people are like, hey, don't forget. So I think for Black women, there's definitely a silencing aspect to like what they sacrifice as far as being the only ones, just being Black women in general, while Black men, to Cordell's example, tend to be used as an example or made an example of, for people to understand this is what happens when you do this kind of behavior, when you defy me, even if the action isn't necessarily a defiant behavior.
Mm-hmm. This goes back to what Tanya said. Like, I think Eli said, it's sad, and it is sad that we are fighting just to be seen. Like, Black men are dying, but it's like, but still see me. It's a pretty sad conundrum.
Yeah, it makes me think about when they used to whip the men, right? In slave times, more the men were being made examples of, if you get out of line, I'm going to whip you. Whereas the women were, take me behind the shed, I'm going to rape you, right? Or I'm going to take your child.
Exactly.
I'm going to cry these silent tears over here, So both scars.
Yeah.
And how do we heal that?
We wouldn't be having this conversation with African American women. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for advocates of women of color pushing for us Black men being murdered. And I love that. You know what I'm saying? The nurturing of an African American woman to actually say, you know what, I'm not going to be silent. I'm going to get out here in the forefront, and we're going to start this Black Lives Matter movement to even have these conversations and to keep it going. You know what I'm saying? I feel like now in these times, people kind of like simmer down and trying to get back into a normality. There's nothing normal about where we're at now. I say to me, what I've been doing to advocate for Black Lives Matter movement or racial injustice, I've been joining forums on my job, having conversations to keep these people aware. And I was the only male, it's like 30, maybe 30 other people on there, but I was the only Black African-American male on that call. So I kind of spoke up and said, like, look, hey, well, they're asking, like, what can we do different? I was like, well, imagery, the biggest thing, like you guys, you see on the news, you keep showing. I would much rather not keep looking at the news to try to explain to my sons that'll be 12 and 13 this year. They keep seeing what you're not and what can happen to you. I don't want to keep having those conversations with them. Hey, I want to have the conversation, son. Like you see on movies when they have in-home dinners and stuff like that. The biggest issue that they have maybe is if you're going to be the king of a prom or something like that. Something minor like that I can actually teach you and not relegate back to, hey, son, your life may be in jeopardy.
Survival.
Go out here and it's a survival thing. So I think that's the biggest thing for me is imagery. Like, what are you showing me? What are you showing these kids? Because it only takes so much. What you can take.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lundy, you were going to say something. I didn't want to wrap them up. I knew he was gonna say something, and I wanted to give you that time. Yeah.
Oh
Go
yeah,
ahead,
no
Lenny.
problem. I was just going to speak to like you all was saying, like great points from everybody, but just speak to the erasure of Black women in regards to like everything that we deal with as Black men, like you said, the imagery and how we're made an example of, and that has a historical context, right? Book breaking and all of those things where you saw these things, and just to speak to how it is a very important issue about how a lot of women have been erased, not only in regards to like Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, you're speaking of even trans women, you're speaking of women who are in these political roles. Like it's a lot of people that I know that don't even know that it's two women who started the Black Lives Matter movement, you know what I'm saying, like who were first with it. And I think it's important to make sure that as Black men, and of course as other Black women, to make sure that we're not continuing or not enabling the silence of Black women in regards to police brutality, racism, white supremacy, because what I've just understood now is that I don't have the energy or the time to go back and forth on, oh, I'm a Black man, I got it worse. Or no, Black women have it worse, because that's a struggle Olympics, right? We can point out the areas in where we're disenfranchised more if we want to, but the biggest thing is that we all experience this in some form, and if we don't band together, if we don't begin to lift each other up and make sure we're all highlighting the problems that all of us face,
please.
Then what are we really doing?
You're right.
You got it.
Right.
Jocelyn, I wanted to kick it over to you to have a couple of closing words before I wrap us up today. Jocelyn, how do you want to close us up from your perspective?
This was good. I mean, that's all I can say. I'm super thankful for all you guys, just your time, your input, everything that you're doing in your own lives, and everything that you guys contribute to my life. I'm super thankful. And let's get this out there. Let's make sure that people see it and that they hear it, and that we continue to have more conversations like this. I don't want this to be the first. Like, we need to do this again more often and continue it, and bring other people to the table with us. So thanks, y'all.
Amen to that. To our panelists, thank you for sharing your perspectives this evening. I gotta say, I have learned so much from you this evening. Jocelyn, I think that you did an incredible job. We honestly have been here taking copious notes. We're nerds, y'all. Yes, indeed, we are nerds. I want to wrap us up with a couple quotes that I captured. I mean, y'all were bringing the zingers, but I have a few that I want to share because truly y'all brought the heat. One quote is, I feel like I sacrifice my voice at times because people don't want everything to be about diversity and inclusion. Another one that hit me at the core was, forget breaking news. These are things that we've been living with for decades and for centuries. Another one is, if that's all that you have to offer, your quote unquote willingness to help, I'd rather take nothing at all. And then the last one I'll drop on y'all to our viewers is, let's cut the BS. No, let's cut the bullshit. I'm gonna say it. And so with that, I would again like to say thank you to our panelists, to everybody out there watching. Please be sure to follow Good Stock on all of our social media accounts, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, you name it. Y'all know we have a lot to say. What is so deeply gratifying, though, is that we don't have to be the ones to say it, because we got a generation behind us that is bringing the heat, that is bringing the passion, and that is bringing the fire. So keep tuned in to Good Stock Consulting and keep doing what you need to do to make an impact on your world.
And find out about our guests below.
Yep, check out the comment sections.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.